Welcome today to your screencast for America, Opportunity and Inequality 1920 to 1972. Today we are going to look at LO29 from Your Knowledge Organiser. What was the second Red Scare? And for those of you that recognise this, we'll have learned about the Red Scare in the 1920s. So it might be worth you going back to look at the video for that, which is LO17. Okay, why was there a rising fear of immigrants? That'll go through the first Red Scare. For the second Red Scare, though, it also has another name just to let you know. So it's also called McCarthyism. So if you get a question on McCarthyism, it's asking you about the second Red Scare. It's a terrible arrow. So what was the second Red Scare in the 1950s then? Well, it's a fear of this, communism. Once again, it's a fear of communism, the idea that all wealth should be shared. So if we remember at the time, America was capitalist, which we can see here, and Russia was communist. Now, the problem here for America is that this fear of communism started to come back. So they were on the same side as Russia, or the USSR in the Second World War, so they're on the same side as communists and capitalists fighting to defeat the Nazis. But after the Second World War, Russia ended up, so we can kind of see Russia's borders here. And although it's a modern map, this is quite accurate. So we can see the border there. But they actually took over these countries by force. So Poland, Ukraine, Romania. They took over them by force and forced them to become communist. Now, America was scared that is what they were planning to do to America as well, which is why the Cold War began. So they were afraid that that communism was spreading and that the USSR would eventually spread communism to America, and America would kind of lose its identity, its capitalist identity, where you could earn as much money as you wanted. There'd be no more economic booms, there'd be no more consumer society, and all the good things that link with that, such as popular culture and fun and being rich, and the American dream, being as rich as you possibly want to. But there was also more evidence that communism was a threat as well. And this came through the example of the communist couple, the Rosenbergs. So we can see the woman on the left and the man on the right. These two were Americans, but actually were spying for the communists and passing them information. Meaning that America had clear evidence this time that there was communist spies in America really trying to push for a communist takeover, communist spread in America. So they had the evidence this time, unlike the 1920s. So there was evidence and people were afraid, but things got worse. And things got worse because of this man here, Joseph McCarthy. And what Joseph McCarthy did was he started to claim that he had the name of 200 government officials who were communist or trying a communist takeover. And ultimately, to many Americans, this was really, really scary. Because remember, this is what America under communism looks like. And so McCarthy did this because he was afraid. He was afraid of communism. Okay, so that was one reason why he did it. He was kind of saying, listen, we cannot become a communist takeover country. However, there was another reason he did it. McCarthy was a Republican politician, and he was able to say anyone who argued against him on whatever, he would just say is a communist, which meant that people would automatically side with McCarthy because they were afraid of communism, which would boost his standing. So he had eyes on becoming the president of America. He wanted that. And by blaming everything on communists, he thought he would be able to get more votes. By calling opposition communists, he hoped that people would hate them and despise them. So that is kind of why he went and did that. Now, ultimately, McCarthy failed. He was called, his ideas were called treason to America, because what he did was he kind of accused the army or some of the army of being communists. When this was taken to court and there was no proof, it was a nightmare. It was a disaster for him, because the army is one of the most sacred things in American history. You're supposed to love and protect and treasure the army, whereas McCarthy had tried to almost beat it down. So even Republicans, everyone disowned McCarthy. As a result of this, the period of where there was a second Red Scare, this massive fear of communism in America, was known as McCarthyism. So that's why it's called McCarthyism, because McCarthy kind of fed into this idea, this fear of communism. Now, on your knowledge organizer, it does talk about another cause of the second Red Scare. So obviously we've got Americans being fearful of communists. We've got Joseph McCarthy, but we've also got the HUAC. So it's worth you looking at them. It's just an organisation that investigated Americans 1947 to 1950, with many Americans being forced out of their jobs because of investigations. So it's worth you just knowing that little tidbit of information as well, to help you out there. So as well as this screencast, look at your knowledge organizer as well and collect that key information, please.